The crack of the cricket bat echoed down the quiet sidewalk before my daughter even had time to scream. 1 second she was walking home from school, headphones in, backpack slung over one shoulder. The next, a grown woman from our HOA was charging at her like a weaponized nightmare. No warning, no argument, just rage. The bat came down hard, knocking my 15-year-old to the concrete as neighbors froze behind their curtains. Blood on the pavement. A child crying for help. And the woman yelling, "You don't belong here." You'd think this story would end with justice, right? Arrests, consequences, an apology at the very least. But that's where you're wrong. Because what happened after that attack, in court behind closed doors, didn't just protect the attacker, it destroyed my daughter's life in ways we never saw coming. And the most shocking twist? The law helped them do it. Before we go any further, let me ask you something. AP Mary video kiss city esi dekrahi ho? Globe showing America's Neche comments main apni city kanam zero or likna, kyanki ekahani surf marinahi? Yeah, Haras parent ki hai, jo sakta hai kuaska bakcha apni high neighborhood main safe high. Or agar AAP real life, emotional, shocking, or injustice esi bari kahni in sant renachat ho, abi channel ko subscribe Carlo. Kyanki jo AJ AP Sanjarahi ho, wo system parsol afadi hai. Abcheli kahani shuru kardihain. Yet koi crime-ridden area nahida. Yeah, America ka ek clean, well-maintained suburb, the trimmed lawns, white fences, or Harchi's HOA rules kumutabik chalditi. Yahan log apni property values ki zayada fikar kardi thay, insaniat ki kam. Mary Beatty surf 15 sol ki ti. Na koi badamizi, na koi jagda. Wo raz ki terra school esi gare rahi ti, sidewalk par. Jo HOA rules kumutabik public access the lekanas din, ek cheese any sab kuch badal dia, ek orit, jo kud ko neighborhood ki malik samajdi ti. Any decide Carlia Kamari Beatty any koi rule ta dia hai. Or us rule ka faisla? Usan kud hai saza bidadi. Is kahani main surf ek attack nahi hai. Is main power ka abuse high, system key, anti support high, or ek AC court fight high jahan sach sab kusamni the Furby justice hargaya, or J's, AAP auge sunoj, AAP samaj joj kuyas surf ek HOA karen ki kahani nahi, ye ek poor system kananga sach high. That afternoon started like 100 others before it. The sun was still high. The air warm but calm, the kind of suburban quiet that makes parents feel falsely safe. My daughter had just been released from school. She didn't ask for a ride that day, she never did. Our neighborhood sidewalks were supposed to be the safest place a kid could walk. Cameras everywhere. Neighbors everywhere. Rules everywhere. She texted me at 3:18 p.m., heading home now. That was the last normal moment of our lives. She walked the same route she'd walked for years, past manicured lawns, identical mailboxes, houses that looked perfect on the outside. She had her headphones on, listening to music, thinking about homework and weekend plans. She never saw the danger coming, because why would she? It was a sidewalk, in broad daylight, in an HOA-controlled, family-friendly community. But standing near the corner, right where the sidewalk curves, past the community green, was her. The woman everyone quietly avoided, the one who policed trash cans, parking spaces, lawn height, and who belonged. The HOA Karen. She was holding something in her hands, something my daughter didn't recognize at first. It wasn't until the woman stepped forward that reality hit. A cricket bat. Solid wood. Heavy. Raised like it was meant to hurt. My daughter slowed down, confused. She pulled one earbud out. "Can I help you?" she asked, polite, respectful, the way we raised her. The woman's face was twisted with rage. "You kids think you can do whatever you want," she snapped. My daughter didn't even understand what she was being accused of. Walking? Existing? Breathing in the wrong zip code? Before my daughter could answer, the woman screamed, "I warned your kind before." And then the bat came down. The sound wasn't like in the movies. It wasn't dramatic. It was dull, heavy, sickening. The bat struck my daughter's shoulder and knocked her off balance. She hit the pavement hard, scraping her hands and knees, her backpack flying off. She screamed, That scream echoed through the quiet street, a sound no parent should ever have to imagine. The woman didn't stop. She stepped closer, standing over my daughter like a predator. "Stay down," she yelled, lifting the bat again. My daughter raised her arms instinctively, crying, begging her to stop. "I didn't do anything. Please." Behind closed doors, curtains moved. Windows cracked open, just enough for eyes to watch. But nobody came out. Nobody intervened. Nobody called out. Fear does strange things to people, especially when HOA politics and neighborhood reputations matter more than a bleeding child. The bat swung again, grazing my daughter's arm this time. She screamed louder. That's when a passing driver finally stopped and shouted, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" The woman froze. For a split second, reality seemed to catch up with her. She lowered the bat, breathing heavily, then pointed at my daughter like she was the criminal. She was trespassing. She broke HOA rules. Rules. My daughter lay on the sidewalk, shaking, crying, bleeding, and this woman was talking about rules. Someone finally called 911. When the police arrived, my daughter was still on the ground, hugging her knees, terrified to move. The woman stood a few feet away, arms crossed, bat resting against her leg like it was no big deal. I arrived minutes later after getting a call that every parent dreads. When I saw my child on the pavement, tears streaking her face, clothes torn, arms bruised, something inside me broke permanently. I ran to her, holding her, asking who did this. She could barely speak. She just pointed. The officer asked the woman what happened. She said it calmly, confidently, like she'd rehearsed it. She was violating HOA rules. I felt threatened. Threatened by a 15-year-old girl walking home from school. I expected handcuffs, arrests, outrage, something. Instead, I saw hesitation, a pause, a look exchanged between officers. They asked about cameras, HOA involvement, property boundaries, and that's when I realized something chilling. This wasn't just about an attack. This was about power. The woman wasn't just a neighbor. She was connected, deeply. HOA board member, friends with management, known to local officers for community involvement. While my daughter was taken to the hospital, the woman was allowed to go back to her house. No arrest, no cuffs, just a statement taken. At the ER, doctors confirmed bruising, soft tissue damage, and trauma that wouldn't show up on x-rays. My daughter flinched every time someone raised their voice. She refused to let go of my hand. That night, she asked me a question I'll never forget. "Am I in trouble?" That's when I knew the damage wasn't just physical. And as devastating as that day was, it was only the beginning. Because what happened after this attack, when the HOA, the police, and the court system got involved, would hurt her far worse than any cricket bat ever could. The morning after the attack, my daughter didn't go to school. She couldn't. Her arm was swollen, purple and blue, wrapped in a sling the ER had given us. But the real injury was invisible. She jumped at every sound. She refused to look out the window. When a car slowed down outside our house, she whispered, "Is she back?" I assured her she wasn't. I was wrong. By noon, I received an email that made my hand shake. From HOA Management Office, subject, Incident Report and Notice of Violation. Notice of violation. Not concern. Not apology. Not, "Is your child okay?" A violation. According to the email, my daughter had been loitering, creating a disturbance, and violating community pedestrian conduct rules. They cited vague clauses about unauthorized use of common areas and provoking resident fear. Provoking fear. A 15-year-old girl with a backpack. The email ended with a sentence so cold it still haunts me: the homeowner may be subject to fines or further action pending review. I immediately called the number listed. The woman on the other end spoke in the same rehearsed, professional tone. Polite, detached, uninterested. She was assaulted, I said. She was beaten with a bat. "Yes, we're aware of the incident," she replied. "Then why is my daughter being written up?" "Well, sir, there are two sides to every situation." Two sides. Later that afternoon, we found out what the other side was. The HOA, Karen had already submitted her statement, not just to the HOA, but to the police as well. In her version of events, my daughter was no longer a child walking home. She was a suspicious individual, a potential threat, someone who refused to leave private property. She claimed my daughter had cursed at her, claimed she advanced aggressively, claimed the bat was used only to defend herself. Every word was a lie, but lies, when written confidently and backed by the right people, become something else entirely: official records. 2 days later, a police officer came to our door, not to check on my daughter, not to follow up on her injuries. He came with questions for us. He asked why my daughter was walking alone. He asked if she had ever been disruptive. He asked if she knew HOA rules. My daughter sat on the couch, clutching a pillow, listening as her character was quietly dismantled in front of her. That was the moment she stopped crying. Instead, she went quiet. The HOA held an incident review meeting the following week. We were told attendance was strongly encouraged. No lawyer present. No advocate for us. Just us, facing a long table of people who already knew which side they were on. The woman who attacked my daughter sat there too. Calm, composed, dressed neatly. The bat, of course, was never mentioned as a weapon, only as a household object. They played security footage, not of the attack. That camera malfunctioned. Instead, they showed clips of my daughter walking, slowing down, looking around, removing an earbud. They paused the footage like it was evidence of intent. She appears confrontational here, one board member said. My daughter looked at me, eyes wide. Am I? She whispered. When we tried to speak, we were interrupted. When we mentioned injuries, they redirected. When we mentioned trauma, they minimized. The conclusion was delivered like a business decision. No further action against the resident at this time, but a formal warning against the homeowner, a fine for violating HOA conduct standards, and a recommendation that the minor avoid common areas unaccompanied. In other words, stay invisible, stay silent, stay out of sight. The court date followed soon after. We assumed, foolishly, that court would be different, that facts would matter, that injuries would matter, that a child would matter. The woman arrived with a lawyer. We did not. The charges? Not assault, not battery, disorderly conduct, against my daughter. The argument was simple and devastating. The woman feared for her safety. The bat was a deterrent. The injuries were unfortunate but incidental. I watched the judge listen, nodding slowly. When my daughter testified, her voice shook. She told the truth, every word. She described the fear, the pain, the screaming. The woman didn't look at her once. The ruling came quickly. Case dismissed against the HOA resident. Citation upheld against the minor. The gavel fell. My daughter flinched. Outside the courtroom, she asked me a question that cut deeper than any legal loss. Why didn't they believe me? I had no answer that wouldn't break her heart. From that day on, everything changed. She stopped walking anywhere alone. She stopped trusting adults. She stopped believing that rules existed to protect people like her. And the worst part? The neighborhood treated us differently. Whispers, looks, silence. Because once a system decides you're the problem, everyone else follows. After the court date, life didn't go back to normal. It collapsed into something quieter, darker, and far more dangerous. There was no dramatic fallout, no shouting matches, no headlines. Just a slow, suffocating unraveling that happened behind closed doors. The first thing we lost was peace. My daughter stopped sleeping through the night. She'd jolt awake at the smallest sound, a door creaking, a car passing, footsteps on the sidewalk. Every night around the same time, she'd come into my room, sit on the edge of the bed, and whisper, "Can I stay here for a bit?" She never said why. She didn't have to. The doctor called it acute trauma response. The school counselor used softer words, adjustment difficulties. But I saw the truth every day. My child was living in a constant state of fear. School became impossible. She used to love it. She had friends, plans, dreams. After the incident, Her grades slipped fast. Teachers noticed she wasn't paying attention. She'd stare at the door, flinch when someone laughed too loudly, panic when a substitute teacher raised their voice. One day, she was called into the principal's office. Someone had reported her for aggressive behavior. Aggressive because she refused to participate in group activities, because she avoided eye contact, because she asked to sit near exits. The label followed her. Troubled, difficult, defiant. I tried to explain. I brought medical notes, hospital records, court documents. But trauma doesn't fit neatly into school policies. And once a narrative takes hold, facts don't matter much. At home, things were worse. She stopped going outside altogether. The sidewalk where the attack happened might as well have been a crime scene frozen in time. She wouldn't step foot on it, not even to take the trash out. If we needed groceries, she'd wait in the car with the doors locked. Once, while driving past the corner where it happened, she suddenly screamed and ducked down, covering her head with her arms. "There's a bat," she cried. There wasn't, but to her it was always there. The HOA didn't stop either. We received more notices, more warnings, more concerns about our property. Our trash can was out too early. Our grass was too long. Our blinds weren't uniform. It felt intentional, targeted, a reminder. You don't belong here anymore. Neighbors we'd known for years stopped talking to us. Kids who used to wave at my daughter crossed the street when they saw her. Parents avoided eye contact. Silence became the loudest punishment of all. One afternoon, my daughter overheard two women whispering near the mailbox. "That's the girl," one of them said. "The one who caused all that trouble." That night, my daughter finally broke. She sobbed so hard she couldn't breathe. She kept saying the same thing over and over. "I ruined everything. I should have just run. I should have just disappeared." That's when fear turned into something else. Guilt. Self-blame is a poison, especially in young minds. She started believing the lie the system sold her, that she was the problem, that she deserved what happened, that speaking up only made things worse. She stopped talking about the future. No more college dreams. No more career ideas. No more when I grow up. She started saying things like, "What's the point?" Or worse, "People like me don't win." We started therapy. The therapist explained that trauma isn't just about what happens to you, it's about what happens after. When pain is dismissed, when truth is ignored, when a child learns that adults won't protect them. She didn't just lose a sense of safety, the therapist said. She lost trust in the world. And then came the breaking point. One evening, I came home and found her sitting on the bathroom floor. Lights off, door locked. She wasn't hurt, not physically, but the look in her eyes terrified me more than blood ever could. She whispered, "I don't feel real anymore." Dissociation, numbness, emotional shutdown, the mind's last defense. That night, I sat outside her door and cried silently, realizing the truth I'd been avoiding. The court didn't just fail my daughter. It changed her. The woman who attacked her went on with her life. The HOA continued enforcing rules. The judge moved on to the next case. But my daughter was trapped in that moment on the sidewalk, reliving it every day, paying a sentence no one sentenced her to. And the cruelest twist? There was no appeal for this kind of damage. No paperwork to undo it. No gavel to make it stop. We had done everything right, followed rules, trusted systems, believed in fairness. And it still wasn't enough. Because sometimes justice doesn't just lose. Sometimes it teaches a child that the world is unsafe and walks away. For months after the breakdown, we lived quietly, not because we wanted peace, but because we were exhausted. Every letter from the HOA made my chest tighten. Every unfamiliar car slowed my heart. My daughter existed in survival mode, and so did I. But injustice has a way of leaving loose threads behind. And one of those threads finally caught. It started with an envelope slipped under our door. No return address. Just our house number written in shaky ink. Inside was a folded piece of paper with one sentence written on it. I saw what really happened. My hands trembled as I read it again. 2 days later, another envelope came. This one had a USB drive inside. I didn't plug it in right away. Part of me was afraid of hope, afraid of disappointment. But that night, after my daughter fell asleep, I connected it to my laptop. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was footage, not from the HOA camera that malfunctioned, but from a private security camera across the street, one the HOA never mentioned. The video showed everything. My daughter walking calmly, the woman stepping into her path, the bat already in her hand. The first strike. No provocation, no aggression, no threat, just an adult attacking a child. I sat there in the dark, staring at the screen, tears streaming down my face. This wasn't just proof. This was vindication. This was justice, finally breathing. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. A real one this time. When he watched the footage, he didn't hesitate. "This changes everything," he said. "We filed a motion to reopen the case. We submitted the footage. Medical reports. Psychological evaluations. Everything the court had ignored the first time. That's when the resistance began. The HOA's lawyers responded immediately. They questioned the footage's authenticity, claimed it was taken out of context, suggested it was selectively edited. Edited, as if trauma could be staged. Then came the pressure. Anonymous emails telling us to let it go. A letter from the HOA warning us about defamation. A notice reminding us of legal consequences for false claims. False. The word burned. The neighbor who gave us the footage finally reached out directly. She was older, retired, soft-spoken. She told us she'd been afraid to speak up earlier. "They run this place," she said quietly, "and they punish people who cross them." She explained that after the attack, the HOA had gone door to door asking residents for footage and instructing them not to share anything outside official channels. She'd lied. She'd kept her copy. And it haunted her. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "Not after seeing your daughter." Her courage came at a cost. Within weeks, her HOA fees were suddenly reassessed, her parking privileges questioned, her lawn cited for violations it had never had before. Retaliation. Still, she stood firm. The reopened hearing was scheduled. This time, the courtroom felt different. The judge watched the footage in silence. No nodding, no dismissive glances, just stillness. When the video ended, my daughter squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. For the first time, someone in power had seen the truth. But the system doesn't like being exposed. The HOA argued procedural errors, jurisdiction issues, timelines, technicalities, so small they felt insulting. They weren't defending the attack anymore. They were defending themselves. The ruling? The footage was compelling, but inadmissible due to filing deadlines. The case would not be retried. No apology. No accountability. No consequences. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked questions. The story started to spread, quietly at first. Online forums, community groups, parents who recognized the fear in my daughter's eyes. People were angry. The HOA issued a statement calling the incident regrettable but resolved. The woman who attacked my daughter resigned from the board, quietly, and moved to a different neighborhood. No charges, no record, a clean exit. But something had shifted. My daughter saw the footage too. She watched it once and never again. "I wasn't crazy," she said softly. "I didn't imagine it." That mattered more than any ruling. The truth didn't free us, but it cracked the lie. And cracks, once visible, don't disappear. Because even when the system refuses to correct itself, people start watching. After the court shut its doors for the second time, I understood something painfully clear. The system wasn't going to save us. If justice was going to exist at all, it would have to come from somewhere else. So I did the one thing the HOA never expected. I spoke, not loudly at first, not on the news. I started small, a post in a local parents group. No names, no accusations, just facts. A child, a bat, a sidewalk, a court that looked away. The response was immediate. Other parents messaged me privately. Stories poured in, not about bats, but about intimidation, harassment, Selective enforcement. HOA board members who acted like police, judges, and executioners all at once. This happened to my son. They targeted us after we complained. We were too scared to fight back. Patterns emerged. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was culture. A week later, someone shared our story publicly. Then another, and another. The post left the neighborhood bubble and reached people who had no stake in HOA politics, just basic human decency. A local journalist reached out. She asked one question that made me pause. Why didn't this become a criminal case? I didn't have a good answer. When the article published, everything exploded. The headline didn't name the HOA. It didn't name the woman. But it named the truth, a teen attacked, and failed by the system meant to protect her. Comments flooded in. Outrage, disbelief, anger. People weren't debating rules anymore. They were asking the right question. Why was a child treated like a threat? The HOA panicked. They sent cease and desist letters, threatened legal action, claimed defamation, even though no names had been released. They held emergency meetings behind closed doors. Their silence broke too. They issued a second statement, longer, colder, more defensive. It mentioned community safety concerns and misunderstandings. No apology. But people noticed. More neighbors came forward. One admitted he'd called 911 during the attack and was later asked by HOA leadership to let the authorities handle it and not discuss it further. Another shared emails instructing residents not to spread rumors. Control, fear, compliance. My daughter watched all of this from a distance. She didn't want to be the face of it. She didn't want attention. But something inside her shifted. One night, she said something I never thought I'd hear. Maybe if they hear it from me, they'll stop doing this to other kids. She wrote a statement. Not emotional. Not angry. Honest. She described the fear. The silence. The moment she realized adults could choose rules over people. The journalist asked if she wanted it published. She said yes. The article went viral, and with it, the illusion of safety shattered. Advocacy groups reached out. Legal aid organizations asked for details. Parents demanded answers from their own HOAs. The woman who attacked my daughter tried to disappear, deleting social media, moving, changing numbers. But the story followed her in whispers she couldn't control. For the first time, the power shifted. My daughter didn't win in court, but she reclaimed something far more important, her voice. She started sleeping again. Slowly. She started walking outside again. Carefully. She started believing that speaking up didn't always end in punishment. One evening, she stood on that same sidewalk, the place that had haunted her for months. She didn't stay long, but she stood. I didn't lose, she said quietly. They just didn't want to admit they were wrong. She was right. The system didn't fall. The HOA didn't dissolve. But the silence died. And sometimes that's where real change begins. People often think justice is loud. They imagine handcuffs, courtroom victories, headlines that end with case closed. But real justice, the kind that matters, is quieter, slower, and much harder to live with. We never got the ending everyone expects. No conviction, no public apology, no judge admitting they were wrong. The system never said, "We failed your child." But something else happened, something the court could never take away. My daughter survived, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And for a long time, that didn't feel like enough. There were days I was angry, furious, days I replayed every moment, every choice, every sentence I wished I had said differently. Days I hated a system that protected power and punished vulnerability. But then I started paying attention to what changed. My daughter changed, not into someone broken, but into someone aware. She learned early what many adults never learn at all, that authority doesn't always equal truth, that rules can be weaponized, that silence protects abusers more than victims. And instead of letting that knowledge harden her, she let it sharpen her. She started volunteering with a youth advocacy group. Quietly at first, she didn't tell her story. She just listened to others, kids who felt invisible, dismissed, afraid. One night, she came home and said, "They sound like me." That's when I understood something that hit me harder than any court ruling ever could. They didn't destroy her life. They redirected it. The woman who attacked her thought fear would control her. The HOA thought silence would erase the truth. The court thought procedure mattered more than people. They were all wrong, because the one thing they never controlled was what my daughter became after. She learned that justice doesn't always come from institutions. Sometimes it comes from standing, speaking, and refusing to disappear. And yes, there are scars. She still avoids certain places. She still double-checks exits. She still hesitates when authority raises its voice. But she also stands taller now. When someone says, "That's just how things are," she asks, "Why?" When someone says, "Don't cause trouble," she says, "Truth isn't trouble." And when someone tries to make her feel small, she remembers she survived something that was meant to silence her. To anyone watching this who's been hurt by someone in power, to any parent whose child wasn't believed, to any kid who learned too early that the world isn't fair, hear this clearly. What happened to you matters. Your voice matters. And silence is not the same as peace. Justice isn't always a verdict. Sometimes it's a warning. Sometimes it's a story that refuses to die. And sometimes it's a child who was supposed to be broken growing up unafraid to speak. If the story made you angry, sad, or uncomfortable, good. That means you still care. Backhand index pointing right comment below and tell me, have you ever seen power abused like this in your own community? Backhand index pointing right share this video so silence doesn't win again. Backhand index pointing right subscribe to the channel because stories like this don't get told unless we tell them. And most importantly, if you ever see injustice happening in front of you, don't look away. Don't stay quiet. Be the witness someone else needs. Because the truth only loses when good people decide it's not their problem.